Today's lecture will be over Chapter 20, Section 2, Objectives. Number 1, identify major diseases in Africa and their impact on the population. Number 2, describe strategies to fight the spread of diseases in Africa. So the first thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at a few of the serious diseases that are happening in Africa. The first one is cholera. Cholera is a disease that can happen from the lack of clean water. There's some examples here in a book that I read that talked about how people were living downstream, and when they're living downstream, people would be pouring their human waste into these streams, and the people had no other water. So what they would do is they would be drinking water that would be filled with these human feces, and obviously that would cause major problems for their health, and of course they got cholera pretty bad. So again, lack of clean water can cause cholera. Malaria then, often fatal infectious disease marked by chills and fever. These are going to be carried by mosquitoes. What we do see is that they are starting to become resistant to drugs due to overuse, but malaria does happen a lot in Africa. We also saw this a lot in South America, specifically when the United States was working on the Panama Canal. We've been talking about AIDS, which is an acquired immune deficiency system. This is caused by the HIV virus. 70% of adults and 80% of children with AIDS cases are in Africa, and that's a huge number. Now, it's also going to be paired with tuberculosis. We have not seen a lot of tuberculosis in the United States, that this is an infectious respiratory infection that essentially can be fatal if left untreated. So what we see is that these diseases become really bad. Now, about 3 million people died from AIDS worldwide in 2000, but 2.4 million of these people lived in the sub-Saharan Africa. So obviously it's a major problem for this specific area. In Swaziland, 3 out of 4 deaths are from AIDS. Life expectancy has fallen from 58 years to 39 years. In 2000, 26 million people in Africa had HIV or AIDS, which basically is showing the major problems that it can have. Widespread diseases do have economic consequences. Sick people, or people that are sick, are not able to work as much, and so, or even at all, and so it's very easy for these people to slip into poverty. AIDS is lowering South Africa's gross domestic product. By 2000, it could be lowered to about by 2010 it could be lowered to about 17% lower compared to without AIDS. So what we see is, and again these notes are a little bit outdated, but it just shows that the gross domestic product can drop quite a bit if you have a higher number of AIDS. Medical care for AIDS patients is expensive. The United AIDS estimate that about $4.63 billion is needed to fight the AIDS epidemic in Africa. The UNAIDS is the United Nations program studies the AIDS epidemic. We also see kind of a variety of different answers. Since 1930, spraying programs are going to be used to reduce the insect numbers. It fights malarias and other insect-borne diseases. In 2000, the Global Fund for Children's Vaccines pledges money, $250 million over 5 years worldwide. Immunizations is going to help out. Gabon uses oil reserves to upgrade their healthcare system, and the African Development Fund loans Mozambique $2.63 million. Money to be used to upgrade public and health facilities. So what we're seeing is that people are trying to do everything they can to help out the people and help out the AIDS epidemic. We also have South Africa and Brazil working together. The reason is, and we bring up Brazil right now, is that Brazil is very similar to South America, similar in size, money, things like that. And Brazil has public health policies to fight AIDS and other diseases, and so it's kind of a model for developing nations to show how they can fight and combat the AIDS epidemic. Now, Uganda and Senegal have reduced the spread of HIV. 1997, Uganda offers same-day HIV testing and educational programs. Infection rates among 15 to 24-year-olds have dropped almost 50%. So we can obviously see that that's an improvement right there. Senegal controlled the spread of AIDS with intensive educational programs. Infectious rates have been below 2% since the mid-1980s. And the UNAIDS says that HIV rates in sub-Saharan are down. 1999, they dropped by about 200,000 cases, but the figures can be a little bit misleading depending on who's producing them. This is going to be the end of the lecture for Chapter 20, Section 2. Please complete the assessment at this time.